Hi everyone, I'm Kate Bly. I'm an X Spaces host, website designer, and photographer, and I'm going to walk you through my process of taking recorded audio X Spaces and turning that into additional content. And one of the things I do is I take my weekly spaces that happen in my community, the collaboration station on X, and I turn those into blog posts. So I'm going to walk you through this simple but powerful process to turn this content and repurpose it using AI tools. So whether you're using X Spaces for discussions, interviews, community engagement like I do, this will help you repurpose that content into something structured and also encourage activity in your community and in your spaces. So I'll be showing you how to record your X Space using StreamYard. There are certainly plenty of other methods out there or other apps and tools to use. I'm just going to be using StreamYard because that's what I'm using, and I'll walk you through that. But please educate yourself on all the other platforms that are available to you and figure out which one works best for your use case. From that, I'm going to take the audio recording of the space and use NotebookLM to generate an AI-assisted blog post. Plus, I'm going to also share a few tips on how to keep your transcripts clean, clear, and easy to use for this purpose, and explain why I'm using NotebookLM over other AI models. And this is going to be a great way for you to maximize your content, turning the single in conversation into multiple formats that you can share across other platforms and even on your own website, blog, etc. So let's dive in. Now, I use X Spaces quite a bit on X, and if you're not familiar with this, if you happen to be watching this video on another platform, it's a audio space, an audio conversation where you host, you have co-hosts, and you can invite people up to speak on any subject, your own little talk radio show, essentially. I like to refer them to as live audio podcasts, where if they are recorded, they can be listened to at a further date. But with a live audio recording, there may be some additional editing that you want to do. So for the spaces that I host that I specifically repurpose into podcasts, I do additional editing. But what's so helpful and powerful about these things is they're very interactive. Conversations can go many different places, many different directions. You never know who's going to pop in, right? And that's what's so powerful about it. And so you can, if you are very good at this kind of format, turn this into podcasting content. You can record, which I'm going to show you how to record these spaces and repurpose it as video content as well across all kinds of social media platforms. So let's get into it. This here on the screen is a screenshot of, or not a screenshot, it's the actual page, actual post of how I repurpose this content. So in my community, the collaboration stations, we have twice weekly meetups where we have these audio spaces. Anyone's welcome to join and have it be a very interactive conversation about whatever subject matter we get into. We have different topics. We also have it as an open forum for content creators to share what they're working on and talk about their stuff. So each space is always different. We always have new people that we have conversations with. And what happens with this content is it's recorded, it happens in that usually a 2-hour span. We have some really great value. We have some really great conversations. And then it's almost like it's forgotten about. Maybe in the days following, some people might listen to the recording, but for the most part, that happened and now it's over. And it's kind of hard to find other uses for it. So what I've started doing is I've started repurposing these spaces into articles, which on X is it's a premium plus feature. So you have to be paying for this feature to have access, but don't fret. You could use the same method that I'm using here and repurpose it as blog content on your own website. You could repurpose it as other content on other social media, Substack articles. The sky's the limit, guys. Patreon, whatever. Get creative and think about how you can use this content. I'm talking about repurposing it into written content, but Sky's the limit with this. So this is just one method. And you'll see here, this is the article. And it's just basically a spaces, notes, and roundup. So it's just what we talked about, a summary of the thing, and I include a recording if people want to listen to the recording. I feature all the hosts, co-hosts, and speakers that happen to participate in the conversation. I also tag them to encourage them to share the post. And tagging in an article, I've found doesn't hurt reach. Articles aren't very well boosted in the platform anyway, so I'm not afraid to include links or tag people in these posts. We have a question or topic of the day, and then we have a space poll that's kind of fun. And then I give a little summary of each of the speakers and what they offered during the conversation. And then in the end here, I do have a little bit of sponsored content. I also mention all the apps, websites, and tools that we discuss in the conversation for reference to anyone who was there and wants to reference what we were talking about. And then also an opportunity to join the community. So you can see this is a very comprehensive and effective way of repurposing this content. Now, why would I want to do this? Bring attention to the spaces, right? Bring attention to the community in a different way. But also, and I think more importantly, it's actually putting this stuff out on the internet in a written format. Whereas an audio format, it may not get crawled by search engines. It's actually not going to get crawled by search engines. So people are never going to stumble upon your content as easily as it is if it's in a written format. So that's my purpose of doing this. And it helps also add to search engine optimization as far as your community, your account reach, other people who associate with your community, all that stuff. So this is just another way to repurpose that content for a more of a lasting staying power of your content. So quickly, I'm going to go over the process of setting up a space, and I'm going to go ahead to the community page and show you my spaces that I have for the community. And when you create a space and you're in a community, it's going to show up along this bar here. It's a very great feature. And you have all the recorded ones and then the upcoming ones here. Now, when you're hosting a space, the best way to repurpose, if you're planning to repurpose this content for written content, is to use the hands method. Now, when people come up and speak in spaces, sometimes it's a free-flowing conversation. But the problem with that is when the AI takes that recording and makes it into a transcript for you, it has a hard time identifying who the speakers are when it's just back and forth. Whereas if I use the hands method, people raise their hand when they want to speak. I call on them by name. Now the AI is informed once it reads the transcript who's speaking when, and then it's able to parse out who's speaking who, where, and what they added to the conversation. And it's pretty accurate when I do that. So that's one tip as far as it goes with spaces. All right. And the next thing I'm going to talk about is once you have a space. So if we have a space here ready to go and it's started, how are we going to record that? So my next step is to use StreamYard. Now, like I mentioned before, there's many other tools that you can use for this. I'm going to walk through StreamYard because that's what I use. And all we have to do is create a recording. And to do that, you create a recording. You can use the space title as the name of the recording so you can keep track of things. And then you start to create your recording. Now from here, you're going to enter into the studio. I'm going to just mute and stop my camera because I'm actually recording this video with StreamYard right now. So I don't know if that's going to break things. We're going to see what happens here if I open up another recording, but I want to walk you through this. Okay, so here we're opening up the recording studio in StreamYard. It's very simple, very intuitive if you haven't been in here. And what I'm going to show you how to do is record the space. So what you want to do before you start the space, you want to click on the present and share screen. And then you're going to select the tab that has the space on it. Okay, so we're seeing this now. All right. So you'll see here, down here, it has the space, the presentation of that tab of the space, right? Okay, so I'm just going to go back and deselect that. So now it's just showing the space because I haven't started it yet. Once it starts, then I would refresh this page, right, in that tab, and then enter the space. But the problem is, if I'm hosting the space, I can't record the space on my desktop, or if I do, it could potentially glitch. So what's my workaround for this? My workaround for this is I start a new incognito tab, private window. I log into X with a separate alternate account that I have. So if you don't have multiple X accounts, that's okay. Just create one and use it just for this purpose. You want to make sure it's not a spammy account, anything like that. But you can just create an account, a separate account. It's good to have a backup anyway in case something happens to your primary account. And you can log into that in an incognito or private tab, share that screen with StreamYard, just like I did here. And then once you start the space on your phone with your primary account, refresh on your desktop computer the space and start listening. And at that point is when you want to hit record. You may even want to hit record before you start the space because then you don't miss anything if there's a few seconds off. So you start recording, enter the space in your alt account after you've shared the screen so it looks just like this, and make sure down here on your settings here that your account here on the left is muted, so it's not hearing you talk, right? But the screen audio is on. So it's recording the audio from the space itself, not you talking. If you have your mic on and this, you'll have a lot of echo going on when you listen to the recording and it will be completely unusable. So that's the method for that. And you record until the space is completely ended. You go back into StreamYard here, you end the recording, and then you go ahead back to your dashboard. Now, once you're in your dashboard, now I have a few different things going on here. I have reusable studios, which is a feature in the paid version of StreamYard, worth checking out if you do a lot of recordings like this, so you can kind of keep your flow and settings set up. But other than that, it's going to show up in your past recordings, okay? So go to wherever your recording is. The most recent one I had is here in the collaboration station space, and I'm going to just quickly hit pause, that plays, so that doesn't disturb us. So this is the recorded space. You can see here, if I scrub ahead, you'll see the space here with the speakers and everything, okay? Now, what do I do next from here is I download the space. And when I click download, let's see, do you guys see this pop up? Yes, you do. Okay, excellent. You can download the recording. Now that's the video and audio. So if you want to repurpose this content for something else, you can. So you can cut it down to clips, whatever, make video content out of it. But what I'm interested in for this, using it to create articles and to create blog posts and things like that, is the audio recording. So I'm going to download both of these, but for today, I'm going to just download the audio recording, and you'll see that that takes about 6 minutes. So that's processing. And then once that is done processing, I'll get a notification that that's ready. So while that's going, we're going to go ahead over to what I use to process the audio file, the MP3 file. I'm going to go over to NotebookLM. So notebooklm.google.com, and the links to everything I'm sharing with you guys is going to be down below the video. So some of the links are affiliate links, referral links for me, which support my content. So I welcome you to use those. And also this links to everything so you can find everything very easily. notebooklm.google.com. It's a free service from Google that you can add sources and then chat with those sources, okay? So I can use the AI power of Notebook to chat with whatever I add to it. So you'll see here in my collaboration station notebook that I have all the recordings of spaces. I started here around episode 13, and then now I'm up to episode 32, and then I have currently downloading, right, that we just worked on downloading is episode 33. And then also in here, I want you to notice a couple other things. I have a blog post template. So when I'm chatting with the files here, sometimes I want it to be following a specific flow to create this article for me. And the fastest way to do that is to create a blog post template. And how do I do that? Well, I go ahead over to Google Docs. And if you use Google Docs, you know how easy it is to work in there. It's very familiar. It's very easy. So I just created an actual template of what I want the blog post to look like. So I have the title. It will pull in the episode number. I just write this out how I want it to be. And, I give it cues of what I want the fill in the content and any auxiliary information. Like I always wanted to have this line, this article is written with the assistance of Notebook. I want to make it clear that this is AI assisted. I can't spend all day writing this article, right? So I'm using AI to help expedite this process, get the information out there, and this is how I found it to be effective. So you can use this template here if you'd like, or you can create your own. Feel free to copy what I'm doing here, and I list the host, co-hosts, all the speakers by name and their handle. And then I include all the other parts of the space, the format that I usually do. So we can make sure that everyone is featured. I have my sponsored content already pulled in. I cue it to talk about any apps, websites, or tools to list those and include some of the context. And then a final call to action to join the community. So this is my basic template. Didn't take me very long to do. Of course, setting these things up is always going to be harder the first time. It's going to take you a little bit longer. But once you have this stuff, these systems in place and this workflow sorted out and you have it figured out, it's very, very easy to do this every time. So what do I do next is I want to make sure that NotebookLM can reference this specific document, right, in my Google Docs. So I click Add Source. And then you'll see here, I can upload anything, but I can also link to Google Docs itself, right? So I can go ahead and do that. You can even use a website. You could use Google Slides. You can even just copy and paste text in there. It's very cool. And something else, if I go into Google Docs and update this document, so maybe I want to have here a little note about if anything's incorrect, please let me know. If you notice any incorrect information, please let me know and I will make those corrections. So just something like that, because AI generated content sometimes hallucinates. Even though I'm giving it exactly what I want it to know, it's not pulling information from outside of my sources. It could still get confused. Like I said in the transcript, it doesn't necessarily say who's saying what, right? It's guessing. So with that hands method of calling on people and alerting, like this is who's speaking next, this can be very helpful for that. And it will not always be perfect, but in general, I find if I do this within a few days of recording the space, I have a pretty good recall of what happened and who said what, or if there's something mixed up, like this doesn't seem quite right, then I can reach out to the person and be like, do you remember what you said about that? Or if I'm really not sure, I just won't include it, or I might re-listen to the space or go up to where I know that person was talking because they talked for a short time and re-listen to what they said and maybe make some adjustments there. So this is ultimately just to get a rough draft, right? There's always going to be fine-tuning needed on the human level. All right, so that is still processing the audio file. So we're going to go ahead and wait for that to process, and then I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how I create the article from this MP3 file. Okay, so that download has finished, and I am ready to go ahead and bring this into my notebook. So all I have to do is click Add Source, and then I can drag it into the upload sources. And you'll see if I scroll down here at the bottom, you'll start to see it working here. Now this takes a little while to upload because I think it uploads and then it also processes the information. And these audio files do take a little longer, especially these Spaces recordings. Mine are typically around 2 hours. I don't know how long your Spaces typically go or your audio recordings or live streams go, but you could do this with live streams. You could do this with the audio recording from a longer space. I will address a couple things in StreamYard regarding what their accounts include. The free account, you can do this for up to an hour, okay? And then your stream will get cut off. The paid account, the next tier up is, I think, $49 or somewhere around there a month. And with that, you can record for quite a long time. And you don't have to worry about, I think the maximum storage is 50 hours. So you should be able to record, never mind any kind of glitches or Wi-Fi issues. That is always going to be a concern, but you should be good to go with a paid StreamYard account to do that. Now look into other options, like I said, because there's plenty of other tools out there. Restream.io is one. OBS is another one that's very popular. So try different things, but this is just my method if you want to get up and running pretty quick and try this out. Okay, so that took a few minutes, but you can see now down here that this has completely uploaded. Now, next thing, if I made changes to the blog post template, so I need to make sure that this is updated and accurate. So I click the more, or no, I click on it itself. And here you'll see click to sync with Google Drive. So we just click that. It's going to sync it, and then it's going to have those updates I made in it, which is right here. So this part is the part that's updated, okay? And then I can just close that source view. And so we now know my blog post template's all updated. Next thing, I want to make sure that it's only using the data I just added, because look at all these recordings I have. I don't need it to write an article about everything. This can be useful when I'm creating other content about the community, about the Spaces in general, because it'll have a great summary of all the stuff we've talked about. But what I want to do is just focus on that one space. So I'm going to go ahead and uncheck all the sources, and I'm going to check the blog post template, and I'm going to check the most recent upload, which is episode 33 here. And this is in alphabetical order, so you can rename these so that if you need to have it so it's visually more easy to find what you need, go ahead and do that. So you'll see now when I'm typing over here, you'll see it says 2 sources. So that's just another way to confirm that it's only referencing these 2 sources. Okay, now it's time to get this thing to write the article, okay? So I have stored in my notes over here the actual prompt that I want to use, okay? So you can use this, you can use a different one, and this is a few different things that I'm going to say is I'm really telling it to make sure that it's attributing the content to the correct speakers and handles access and stuff during the breakdown. It's using the blog post template source as its way to follow and create the information. So I'm just going to copy that prompt and paste it in here. Now, what else I have here is I have the host, co-host names, and handles, just to give it a little bit of a boost, because the problem is when translating the names and handles of people, it can miss up the spellings and things. So I just give it a little clue. And then I also have the speakers. Now this is the speakers list from a different space. So I need to go back to the other space and put in the speakers' names of those who participated. And the fastest way to do that is to actually go back to StreamYard, to my recording. I go to the end frame, and as long as I was recording all the way up to the very end, the list of speakers will be there at the end. Let me get there. So you can see right at the very end. Okay. It's easier said than done with these longer spaces. But we get right up to the end here, and you'll see there's the list. This is also super easy to find on the phone. You're not going to be able to, for some reason on the desktop website computer, it's harder to find the list of the speakers on that final screen, but it does show up on the phone. So you can go listen to your replay of the space and get the speakers list. So once your space is ending, a little trick at the end of it, you can just select all, copy and paste it into a text document or something, so you have that reference for those spaces. That's one of the little tips and tricks that I do, just so I know that the AI now knows, has a point of reference. These were the speakers and can kind of sort through that information. So I'm going to go ahead and get those speaker names and I'm going to add it to my prompt. All right, so you'll see here I've added the speakers' names and handles here. I have those listed out, and then I'm going to just hit the enter key. I'm going to make that smaller, and here it is working. And I did forget to update the number of this episode. So you can see here, right, the blog post for episode 32, it did update it for me to 33. It kind of figured out that I made a mistake there. And you'll see it's formatted mostly how I want it, right? So I can go ahead and see this is the format. Here are the speakers, the co-hosts, the topic of the day, and all the information. And then it leaves the embeds spaces for me to add this. And then here, what the speakers said and added and talked about, then my sponsored content section, and then here, the apps, tools, and websites mentioned here. And, you know, if you see that there's a few errors, you can prompt it again, push it a little bit further if you're seeing it's not working right. Or maybe you need to tweak your blog post template a little bit so that it's really instructing people what to do. But for I think this looks great. So what do I do next? You can select all, but when you select all manually like this, these little numbers that are referencing the different parts will come with it. So what you want to do is actually use this copy, and then we're going to go over to X, and here's a blank article that I have opened, a draft, and I go ahead and just paste that in. And that gives me my rough draft, right? So obviously there's some things here I have to change. I want to go through, I want to make sure I add my links to the articles, linking to the community, add any images, embed the space recording, all these different things that I've added here that I want to make sure comes across. I want to make sure I read the summaries that it made, the different things that people said. It can be kind of interesting what it picks up and what it doesn't. Now, if it, for some reason, I want it to elaborate more maybe on what someone was saying, or I remember something that someone said and it doesn't seem to pull it back, I can have a conversation with NotebookLM more about, like, well, I remember Rich talking about whatever, right? Radar or something else. And can you find a quote? So I could actually quote of that. And it can elaborate on this information. It can actually pull a quote, right? So you can expand on this idea and expand on your blog post template, expand on your content, but you can see this gave me a rough draft, exactly how I want it to look very quickly. And now I just have to go in and just finalize the draft, tag, make sure all the tags are accurate. The formatting is how I want it, right? I want everything to kind of look and have a flow to it, and embedding and adding the images. So I hope this is helpful and shows you how you can repurpose this content. Now, I could take this same thing and put it on my website as a blog post. I could break it up into information and make these into individual posts about just talking about the specific thing that Rich talked about and my thoughts on it. I could even clip a section of the recording and include that with that, for example. There's a lot of things I could do with this to repurpose this content, so it's just not once and done and I forget it. So when you do tag people in articles, it does give them a notification that they were tagged in the article. You can quote post the article for it to get more reach and more visibility, but mostly think of these things as a recording of what happened, almost like recording the minutes of a meeting, and now it's documented, and now search engines are going to know who you are, what you're up to, what you're doing. It's going to also be informing AI, any AI scrapers, like on X, you have Grok that goes through the data on X. It's going to be relevant for that kind of thing, and also for search engines. So lots of multiple use cases for this idea. I want to see what you guys do with this content idea that I have, and I hope you understand why I'm using NotebookLM for this, because I'm able to just take that audio recording file, MP3 file, and dump it in there. I don't have to go through any kind of transcription process. It does that all for me, and it's free. So if you notice, I did everything here with a StreamYard subscription. You could do it with a free one, free NotebookLM, totally free, and using an X account, which you can have an X account for free, but the Premium Plus is required for the articles feature. But you can use you put it on your website. You could use it as a post on Threads. You could use it for just a regular thread post on X. You could use it as a Facebook post. Think about it. Get a little bit more creative in how you can apply this stuff and use these tools that are just so amazing in what you're already doing. I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for watching. And wherever you're watching this, please subscribe, turn on notifications, give me a follow. All my social media links are going to be below in the description. All the links to everything that I've showed you here today is in the description, including my referral links to the partners that I use. And I only talk about affiliate links and referral links because I actually use these products. And then I also use these products for my clients. So that is how I reference any product that I use and I partner with. And besides that, I hope you have a great day. Have an awesome one, and I'll see you soon.